What if the success you're chasing isn't really growth at all, but fear in disguise? Many leaders drive themselves into overdrive, convinced that they are growing when in reality they're anchored to fear and a fear of failing. Today, we're going to uncover how to spot the difference and what it takes to move from proving yourself to truly becoming yourself. Welcome back to the Second Voice podcast, where we uncover the conversations that leaders don't say out loud. I'm your host, Louisa Hogan, and today we're diving into the hidden anchor of fear in leadership and how it masquerades as achievement and how choosing real growth can change everything. And my lovely guest today is a wonderful, wonderful human being, and her name is Marielle. And she is a midlife reinvention and confidence coach and the founder of Mindbreeze.ae. And she helps women in midlife rebuild their confidence, realign what matters to them, and design a next chapter that they're excited to say yes to. And I don't want to delve into her story too much because I'd love for you to hear it directly from Marielle. But thank you so much, Marielle, for joining us today. It is such a pleasure to have you here, and I can't wait to have this discussion with you because you are a real joy to talk to.
Thank you so much, Lou. It's
You're
so
very
nice to
welcome.
finally speak to you face to face because we met, we know each other for some months, and it's amazing now to be just with you here in your podcast. Thank you
Oh,
for inviting me.
thank you so much for joining me because I'm so interested to hear about your self talk and your journey. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to the coaching and the work that you do today.
Okay, I have to go back a little bit. I'm a midlife reinvention coach, and I'm in midlife. So if I go back to coaching, I have to go back to more than 25 years, where I started my own coaching business as a young professional, coming from an international career in management and a consultant. I discovered that I didn't want to work with projects. I wanted to work with people. I think that's what I felt doing from a little girl onwards. I knew certain things when I was really small, and I figured it out in my early 30s and started my own coaching company, which was called Mindbreeze. Um, but when I met my husband and we had children, I lost my little girl very suddenly, and I wasn't able to continue with my business. I just was not able. And I made a big shift. We moved countries and lived on a boat, and I dedicated my whole life to my family. And we had more kids, and we lived on a boat, and we started homeschooling. And all of that kind of was controlled by fear, and we can get later into that as well, or was initiated by fear. Let me say it that way. Now, fast forward, I don't live on the boat anymore. My kids have finished school, and my nest is emptying. And I was like, I'm not done, right? Suddenly my roles were all gone. What's my purpose in life? And I didn't really want to go back to coaching because I thought that's a past station. I'm older now, I've grown, I'm wiser. What am I gonna do now? But you know what they say. Sometimes you just can't ignore it. That's what I needed to do. That's what I want to do. That's what I think I'm supposed to do. So I
Mhm.
revived Mindbreeze, and I'm focusing on women in midlife now because that's closest to me at this season in life, and that's what I do. And
Amazing.
I'm really happy doing it. It's fulfilling, and it's wonderful to be back. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you did because um, getting to know you after over the last few months, you are such a calming presence, and I know for a fact that your clients would get so much out of working for you and with you. So tell me, I want to know more about that fear, because this is a podcast about self-talk. Where was that fear coming from? What was the self-talk at that time? What was controlling you?
Well, I think like you, Lou, I've been in competitive sports my whole life. I used to be a swimmer, competitive swimmer, and swimming is hard. I think, what did you do? You did something very hard as well, right? Was it? Uh,
I did dance drill. Yeah, like
yeah,
yeah,
but that's not like that. You have sports that you can do 3 times a week, but
yeah,
this is a sport you need to do
yeah,
every day of the week, and
yeah,
racing at weekends, right?
yeah,
So that already gives you a certain drive to want to do things in a certain way, right? You have the discipline, you have the goal, you have all of that. So that has always been kind of my go-to place. So when I do something, I want to do it well. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. So the fear of failing or the fear of not doing well is always there. Kind of, you have to start working on that already when you're very young. So I did that. So when I lost my girl, that fear, I was also wanting to be the perfect parent, right? The perfect mom, the perfect. I was so excited. We had twins. Oh my God, I can do this. Two babies. I don't care.
mm,
I can do this. I'm strong. I'm ready. And I lost one.
mm,
So that installed a fear in me that was so overwhelming,
mm,
and it um, established. I don't know how to say this properly, but I was also, as a mom, I had to kind of prove myself over and over again to myself that I could do this. I had more children. I have three beautiful children, but I put everything aside for my children and my family, everything. And here also comes in the performing over becoming, right?
yeah,
I I don't regret it. I have no regrets. We built a wonderful life after that, because we lived our life on our terms, in our timing. We moved to a boat. I homeschooled the kids. I probably would have never done that
yeah,
previously, right? Because my priorities changed, my values changed, everything was different. And I
yeah,
was also lucky to be able to do that. But with my husband, made it also, we were able to do it together. But this fear, and this was driven from me. It was not a fear that was driven from the outside, because in the world we live in, everything becomes manageable. Everything becomes makeable, right? We can fake it. We can do. This was my fear that made me do these things, and it was my journey to deal with that fear, and to always be thrown back to myself inside and see, why am I doing this? How am I doing this? Is
mm,
it benefiting my kids, right? Because you can ask yourself, you have a young child, right?
yeah, yeah,
You can ask yourself, being 100% focused on your kids is not always the right thing to do, right? It's
yeah.
not. You have to find balance in these things. And yeah.
It's so hard though, because I totally get it, because I'm also the recovering perfectionist from the competitive sport that told me I had to win all the time and achieve and achieve and achieve. And that was the goal every day, is you practice to achieve, to win. And it's really hard not to bring that into your motherhood. And I can only imagine what it must have felt like for you to go through what you went through, and you know, then focus all of that drive and energy into making sure that you're the 100% wonderful mother, which I am certain that you were, right? But then, as you say, there comes a time when, you've got to look at that and go, is this good for me for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
tell
for
me
your
more. Oh, sorry, carry on. Carry on.
I mean, also for your kids, right? We
Yeah.
talk about helicopter moms or whatever they call them, right? It's not, trying to do the best you can is not always beneficial, not for yourself and not for the others, right?
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
almost sometimes might get a little bit obsessive, if you try to be perfect. Just be yourself, connect
Yeah.
with yourself. I guess that's a little bit the secret. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's being instead of doing,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to know more. So you've now you realized a little bit of an almost of an empty nest, and you've come to a period of growth in your life, asking what's next for me. So what was the self talk behind that? Around, okay, this is what I want to do. How did you know for certain this is where I wanted to go? And were there doubts for you? Was there fear in that moment?
Yeah, there was fear because after dedicating 25 years to my children and my family, and everything around it, right? Building a home, making new friends when you move countries. There was a lot. There was a lot that I could hide behind. I was always busy and I kept doing a lot of sports, and so I was always busy. But I think my kids leaving the nest really confronted me with losing my main role. And what was your question again?
Yeah, the thought process behind that, and what were the doubts for you?
Exactly, because I had not been in the real working field for years. So I had so many doubts about the world has changed, all this technology now. I had not been on social media for years because it was kind of confusing me. I didn't want to be distracted by it, and again, you talk about outside and inside. It was like affecting my inside. So I wasn't on socials for many years, and I knew if I want to go back to coaching, I have to face all this. And
Yeah.
it made me very insecure, very insecure. And I was again focusing on these outside things and not the strength I have inside. It's funny how these stupid little technical things make you feel sometimes like a nobody, right? Because also nowadays, look, and I feel for my kids who are grown up with social media, and they see all these people do perfect things on the outside, right? While they don't show you how they're doing on the inside. So yeah, that made me very insecure. It made me very insecure. So when I decided to go back to coaching, I found a coach myself, and that helped so much because
Mm.
you learn step by step, and I'm a big believer in little steps, especially when you feel lost or you feel insecure. Taking big steps is usually a lot and scary, but taking little step and see that it makes a difference, that helped me a lot, and that's also what I'm teaching.
Wonderful. It resonates with me so much, Marielle. And even in one of, I've got, um, little courses that I do with people, and I coach myself. And one of the things that I do is sometimes if you want to remain steady in your leadership, it's not asking all the things you need to do. It's like, what's the next immediate step in front of me? Just the one. What's the most urgent thing that needs me right now? Not everything, just the one. And then you take that one step and you get success. And then you take another step and you get success, exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure that's the journey you've been on. But tell me more about the insecurity, because some people will feel those insecurities, Marielle, and then they hide away and then they don't ever rise above it. What have you done to rise above it? And how do you help your clients who may come with those same insecurities? How do you help people? I mean, you can't ignore insecurity, but it takes some courage. It takes some courage to override it. What do you do?
I do several things. Um i am i'm amazed. you know we talk about women, right? Not so much about men. And I can't believe, and I see it all the time, how women talk to themselves,
Hmm.
including me, probably including you, right? Or
Definitely.
we have been training ourselves to stop
Yes.
talking in the way we used to talk to ourselves. And it's not nice. It's not nice. We are so hard on ourselves. And now almost every woman and I've been training myself to catch myself, right? Whenever I say, oh, I cannot do this, I think, no, I'm learning this new thing, and I maybe cannot do it now, but I can do it tomorrow or next week, right?
Yeah.
It makes such a big difference. It makes such a big difference. So that's one way of, every time I feel like a little bit nervous or a little bit panicking, or even very simple thing. And this is something also my husband is very good at this. Like, you're running late, right? You get in the car. It's 10 minutes before you need to be somewhere, and it's a lot of traffic, and you get nervous, and you might make, you're sitting in behind the wheel like, oh, I'm going to be late, and I don't want to be late. I want to respect other people's time, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
But you're not late yet.
Yeah.
You are not late yet. So this is how I kind of talk to myself. I said, look, take it easy. Me getting all nervous now is not going to help anybody. It's not going to help my driving. I might create an accident. I might, it doesn't. And then I get there and I'm all like this. It doesn't work. So I talk a lot to myself, and I change the way I talk to me. And I help women do that as well. And then there's a lot of reframing, right? Uh,
Hmm.
um, Beliefs that people have about themselves from even when they were small, right? That they still believe are valid today, and they're not. And they never ask themselves, hey, is this what I believe about myself? Is it still true? You can reframe it, you can turn it around and look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very helpful. And it's very, honestly, it's really simple things, simple techniques that make a big difference.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I hear you. And it's like, it's simple things, but people shy away from them. But when they find out with support, with coaches such as yourself, or, I was one of my other podcast guests I spoke to just yesterday, was talking about a very similar topic around the beliefs that we have, and, how self doubt and imposter syndrome is actually outgrowing that belief, and then feeling like you're not that person anymore, but you're telling yourself that you shouldn't be in the space that you're in. It was really interesting reframe on what imposter syndrome was. And yeah, and it's very often, as you say, it's a simple little reset, right? It's a simple reset. But I find it interesting that you say things like, oh, I can't do this, when I know, because you've told me, have done two half Ironmans. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I love about self talk, because like other people, I run marathons, but I look at an Ironman and I'm like, those people who achieve that are something else, right? And I find it so interesting that our self talk can help you go through something like an Ironman, but in the same breath can say, I can't do this. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a very
Mm.
fascinating thing.
I think the proving to yourself that you can do it is, and it's not about the medal, right? It's the
Mhm.
proving to yourself, hey, if I can do that, that really scares me. I can do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
So it might come when we moved to Portugal, everything changed, and we started living in a house instead of a boat. The kids went to big building school instead of homeschooling. I had to make a new community, new friends. Everything changed, and I didn't prepare myself for that. I wasn't aware what a big shift that was, and I really felt lost. I really felt, okay. What am I now? I'm an expat wife who goes to lunch every day with, I was like, this is not. What am I going to do? And I actually went to a Tony Robbins event because I love Tony Robbins, and that made me realize, hey, I have to do something totally out of my comfort zone, something like that. And in the place where we live, there was the first ever half Ironman that year, and I signed up. And I'm like, I'm a swimmer. the Ironman, I think it's the hardest. The swimming is the hardest if you're not a swimmer,
Mm-hmm.
because we swam in the ocean, which is scary as well. For a lot of people, scary as well. So I thought, okay, I can do the swim. I'm Dutch. I can bike, and everybody can run, right? Everybody can run, and even if you don't run, you can walk.
Yeah.
Because, but being competitive athlete, that's inside of me. I'm like, I'm not just going to finish. I want to finish well. So, and I was scared to hurt myself, because I also know with these things, you can take it too far and get injured and all of that. So I took it seriously. I trained for 4 months. I knew I could do it. My husband supported me because he had to do more things with the kids, right? Because I was on my bike or running or doing whatever, much more. And yeah, I over my my finishing this Ironman was a big victory for me personally, telling me that, what am I going to do next?
Mm.
What is it, right? Because I did this, I can do. And the sport, I think, gives you a rhythm, gives you a routine. And routine is also so important if you feel lost. Because if you wake up and feel lost, and you don't start with a good morning routine, or with some kind of program that steadies you during the day just vanishes, and you go to bed and you say, oh, what did I do today, right? And you feel bad about yourself. So the routine and the rhythm and the that helps as well.
Yeah, for sure. Was there after the Ironman though? Did it feel like it completed you, or did you go back to a sense of loss again? How did you grow out of that too? Like, how did you use that to grow, or did you realize that there was more growing to do?
Yeah, there was more growing to do. But it established me in my new environment. So I became the president of the kids swim team, which was a very international team with 20 plus different nationalities, because all the people, we were traveling with the team. All my kids were swimming there. I was swimming. It gave me a purpose again. It was
Yeah.
still in the name, for my kids and for my family. But it brought me into like a semi-professional environment again,
Yeah.
uh, where I could show my leadership, where I could show my vision, where all of this,
Yeah.
and eventually brought me back to my coaching.
Amazing. You mentioned earlier, you said proving and becoming.
Mm.
And I really like that phrase. Can you tell me more about what that is and how people can tell the difference between proving and becoming? Because I hear from your story that there was fear and there was this need to prove yourself in many ways. So explain to me what proving versus becoming is.
Proving is kind of, like having a certain norm, having a certain level that is acceptable, and proving that you fulfill that, that you're there.
Hmm.
And I think becoming is being honest and vulnerable, um, sharing your doubts and your insecurities with other people, which makes these other people usually also vulnerable and sharing their, and make gives you a feeling like I'm not alone, I'm not the only one who's dealing with it. I think it's a big issue also in parenting. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel that nowadays, and it wasn't like that when I grew up. I grew up in the south of Holland in a Catholic environment, but you know there were kids who weren't good in school. There were kids who couldn't play sport. It was like, okay, he's into music. He's not into, oh, he has to redo a certain year in school because, he's not. It wasn't an issue. It was just something. I feel nowadays, as a parent, your kids almost have to be good at everything. and that's the norm, right? And everybody is trying to reach that norm and hide everything that is not up to that
Yeah.
norm. And it's not true. It's just
Mhm.
not true. Everybody who tells me only positive stories, I know something is going on, right? It isn't just all pink and glitter and beautiful. It's not. And by me sharing a lot also about my how I'm a parent and how I deal with my kids' struggles and how I deal with my struggles being a mother, um, gave me great insights into how other people do it and how other people deal with things. And it also gives you great friendships because it sharing is caring. It really is. But
Mm.
not just sharing the good stuff, because that makes people envy you, not trusting you, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel it's like, be honest,
Yeah.
which doesn't mean you have to share 100% of what's going on in your house.
No.
But we're not perfect. We are not perfect, and everybody's trying to be perfect these days, right?
So
Which is
true.
intimidating.
It's so true. I think it harks back to what you said earlier, which is, social media is feeding that. In a way, just reflecting on what you're saying, I feel like there's a little bit of in the old, in our childhoods and our parents' childhoods, there was a little bit more of ignorance is bliss. Like other parents didn't know how other parents were parenting. It wasn't splashed all over social media. You didn't talk about it. And also, there was nothing out there educating you 24/7. Like when my daughter was born, your access to the internet has changed how people parent because now, like, your baby's born and then, oh, she burped funny. What does this mean? And then you Google it. And then you've got all of these answers at your fingertips of what you're doing wrong and what could be wrong with your baby. And like, I just feel like the amount of information that we have access to is not helping us in many ways. It's a hindrance, it's a curse and a blessing because we can access the information, how wonderful our wisdom can grow, and we can be better parents. And on the flip side, it creates this pressure to be a certain way because now you know that that's the level of perfect, right? And I just think there was the there was a the complexity a while ago was very different to the complexity we have today. The world is so complex now because of the information we have access to, but in the old days it was complex because it wasn't so easy to do things, right? You couldn't just Google something or find out where something was. So it's an interesting time, and that's why I like your concept of proving versus becoming, because I think when we were children, we were becoming, right? But now it's more about proving.
Yeah. And I love it that you say this because I think, something we haven't touched upon yet is intuition,
Mm,
right? The fact that we Google stuff
yeah.
means we're in our heads. We don't sit and think like, what do I feel? What is the best way to deal with this? We don't do it. And I have it just happened last Saturday. My son is a swimmer. Who would
Of
have,
course.
would have he's in the US on a as an athlete, student athlete, and he called me last Saturday, and it was my mom's birthday, so that's why I'm also in Holland. And I couldn't hear him, and I wanted to hear what he had to say, so I went to a quiet room because there were some people, and he said, "Mom, I have to tell you this." And he's in his last year, in his senior year. He will graduate this year, and he said, "Mom, it's my last season, but I got the best professor, the best subject this year." And Mom, what he's and he's studying finance with a minor in philosophy, and it's a finance course. And he's actually not that much into finance, but a lot into philosophy.
Hmm.
And he said, "This is a Wall Street guy who worked his life on Wall Street, and you know what his perspective is, and what he tells us. The first thing he said, Mom, the best skill, the most important skill you need to have to be successful on Wall Street, to be successful in this area, to be successful in the finance business, is um, trusting your gut,
Mm-hmm.
trusting your gut. And I was like, that's amazing, because for
Yeah.
him to hear that from a finance professor, right? It's amazing. And I believe that trusting your gut, trusting your intuition is the most important skill in life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's life.
Yeah.
And also we forget that by googling, by looking things up, by trying to be perfect. We try to do the things that don't come from inside of us, but they are presented to us from the outside, which doesn't always make it work, right?
Yeah. And also, again, coming back to the fear, right? Why do we do it? Because we're afraid. We're afraid of failing. We're afraid of doing it wrong. And because the answer is out there, it's so much easier to find the right answer than to allow yourself to sit with the discomfort
Yeah,
and sit with this discomfort of not knowing and maybe not getting it right, but it's okay. And listening to the intuition, right? Like I agree. Like intuition is a huge one. I don't think people, I think we've turned into a very strategizing world where we strategize more than we intuit. And I think there's a place for both. And but it's also that feminine and masculine. The masculine is all about strategy and plans and outcomes. And the feminine is all about intuition and sitting with those feelings. And everybody, it's not about being male or female, but it's everybody needs both of those energies, right?
yeah,
And we've tend to have tipped over into this masculine energy world. And I see myself doing it all the time. Like in that masculine doing, and not allowing myself sometimes to just allow that feeling to come through me and not act on it, just feel it.
yeah, exactly. Pause and feel it. Pause and
Yeah.
feel it. We're learning so many new things now. Like for example, also in midlife, the way you do exercise, the way you eat, the way you everything we knew until recently was based on research with men.
Mm-hmm.
How it works best for men, not for women. We are not little men, right? And there
Yeah.
are some great women out there now, telling us this. But we have always been kind of been brought up like, as with man as an example, because
Yeah.
they were always a little bit here and we were here, right? So we were trying to 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 bridge the
Close the
gap.
gap. Yeah.
Yeah, close the gap. But we can do things our way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure. But it's
Yeah,
that
it's important.
confidence and letting go of the fear. Again, it always comes back down to that fear. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, what impact do you think having that fear and listening to that fear has on your relationships, your work? And we've touched on it a little bit, but how did it impact you? You were going through that fear and anchoring yourself through, anchoring your identity as a mother. But did it impact your relationships? How did it impact you?
You mean my relationships in my family or with friends or with everything?
Anybody? Did it impact anything in your life in that way?
I think it made me, because I shut down in a way of living, I shut down a lot of influences from the outside. And it made me realize that, listening to my intuition and doing things my way, no matter what anybody else was doing, um, was what worked for me best. Right. So we homeschooled on a boat, 3 children, off grid. Um, and we were surrounded by people who thought, oh, they're crazy, or are they hippies, or how can you raise kids like that? Right. I also come from a country where homeschooling is not allowed. In the Netherlands, it's not like in the US. I don't know. I think in Australia it's allowed, right? I'm not sure.
It's allowed with some regulation. There's lots of laws. It's not like the US.
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, my fam, people around, they were like, this is weird. How can she make sure that her kids are, how is that? Because it's a right in the Netherlands. It's not like you take away the right of your kids to go to school. So this fear, and I was like, no, we travel, we go around the world, Our kids are exposed to so many things. They had so many friends because we kind of lived in one place. We weren't just we were traveling on and off, and they got exposed to so many more things. Plus, they were not exposed to a lot of what are they wearing in school, a lot of things that disrupts their being a child
Mm,
in schools these days, right?
mm,
Girls can be very mean to each other, like things like that. They were able to just be them.
yeah,
They were just them.
amazing.
Yeah, so I think it made me stronger. It made
Mm,
me my fears of doing things differently in the end made me stronger and made me calmer. You say, you feel I'm calm, but I really feel like, okay, I do things my way. I take a break, I reflect, um, and I make mistakes, right? But I try to learn from them and be in ease with my next steps.
excellent. So, if you were to give any listeners out there who would resonate with that or going through midlife or who are going through fear and anchoring themselves in fear rather than actually growing and becoming or stuck in proving themselves, what are your biggest tips, rituals, tips, anything that they can do to start shifting themselves from proving to becoming?
Yeah, the like we said, there are a lot of ways, and I think it's important that people find ways that work for them. The way you talk to yourself is an important one. I think everybody can understand that, and again, especially women, they when I start talking about that, they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so harsh to myself." Right? So that's a good one. I think gratitude is a great one because if you're grateful, everything else disappears, right? Smelling the flowers outside, hearing the birds sing, all these kind of tiny little things. I coached a woman, and she was really, really, really down. And just by doing these simple things, her life has changed totally, completely upside down. And she wasn't used to doing them. She started it because she wanted to change. I think it's also important that people are ready for a change. And then they need to find the things to do that make them feel good. Because it's the same as with exercising. If you have a goal, okay, I'm going to run 5K every day in the morning when I wake up, and you hate running, you're not going to do it, right?
Mm.
You need to say, okay, I want to take these 10 minutes to myself in the morning, and I set myself off for the day. So yeah, I think that's what I try to discover with the women I coach first.
Hmm.
What works for you? What feels good for you? Let's try that. And if it
Yeah,
works, we take the next step.
yeah. And also trying to let go of the outcome, right? It's like,
It's the process.
it's the process, right? Because, and again, that's that feminine energy, not being feminine, but feminine energy of letting go of the outcome and enjoying the process. And that's the joy in it, right?
And
Um,
celebrating the wins, the
yeah,
tiny little wins.
yeah,
So even having doing your thing and then have your morning coffee. Your morning coffee might be, oh yes, I'm looking forward to that. Or your tea, or, I don't know what just reward. I did this. This is what I'm looking forward to, and celebrate, because that's also what we don't do, right? We
yeah,
do 100 things in the day, and we go to bed at night and think, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And that's what we do.
yeah. Oh,
Let
I need to show you. I've got a little bowl on my table because I was very bad at this. So here's one that you can use with your clients too, right? Or anyone listening. I've got a fish bowl on my desk. Doesn't have fish on it because sometimes you get so busy in the doing that and not celebrating the small wins that you don't realize how far you've come because you're
Yeah,
not seeing big progress. So every time I have a small win, I write it on a post-it note and I put it inside the fish bowl. And you'll see over time, this fish bowl gets full of different colored post it notes. And it's such a good visual way to show you there's progress and
yeah.
to celebrate it without forgetting that I still haven't reached this massive milestone. It's about celebrating the journey, and it's a really cool visual way. I
Oh,
can't reach it now. I would show you, but it's just this little bowl, and it's full of little post-it notes. And you think, yeah, those are how many wins I've had. It's a really cool way to do
yeah,
something. Yeah.
very good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Marielle, as always, a real treat and a pleasure to speak to you. I wish I could speak to you more, but then we'd have 2 hour. I say this with all my guests, and then we'd have 2 hour podcast episodes. And, well, might have to bring you back for more discussion. That would be really lovely. But thank you so much for joining us today. And where can people find you? I think that's important too. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Um, on socials, you found most about me on Facebook. I also have an Instagram account and a LinkedIn account, but I'm less on there. You find me under my name, Marielle Speetjens. I have a Substack account where I write. I discovered writing while,
Amazing.
I loved writing as a small child and I rediscovered it. So I'm on Substack under my name as well. And my website is mindbreeze.ae.
Excellent. Well, I'll put all of those links to in the description of the podcast. So have a look wherever you are listening to the description, and all of those links will be in there. But thank you so much, Marielle. I really appreciate your time of being here and discussing your background so authentically and so vulnerably. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Lou. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. And to everyone listening, I think what I've got most out of this episode is that growth is never about fear or trying to eradicate fear, but it's really about giving yourself the freedom to become who you're meant to be and to allow that to unfold and to enjoy the journey. And I've loved gaining that perspective from Marielle today. Like I said, a real treat. And I know that I've got something so beneficial out of talking to Marielle today. So until next time, keep listening to The Second Voice, and we will see you next week. Take care.